Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show where we talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and/or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the season finale of Manifest, a great episode. Do note that this is me just reviewing episode 13. I did a review of episode 12 separately, even though the episodes aired as one long season finale. But if you missed my episode 2 review, you can catch a link to it in the cards or the end card. I'll have a link to it. So, but like I said, a great season finale. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode. So let's break it down. First and foremost, we start off with the plane situation. It's interesting to find out the reason why Adrian is the way he is because of Angelina. Like a lot of the religious stuff that he's spouting now, it's like stuff he spent time with her and she's the one that kind of shifted his mind, which is interesting because you can make the argument that's kind of where how he ended up maybe becoming the little leader that he was in season 1 and mainly in season 2, but also why he's kind of got the mindset that he does, because it's right, you kind of gave me the word and passed it on. So it's everything that's kind of happening now, it's kind of on Angelina. She kind of set a lot of this in motion in certain regards, because I'm okay, so what are we doing here? Obviously, Egan and them are trying to get locked and loaded, so Randall goes with his wife or whatever to a gun shop, holds up the dude because the dude won't give them the weapons. He's I'm sorry guys, but it's yeah, this whole thing, you guys are 828ers, so I can't give it to you. It's man, I'm just trying to run a business. If I give you weapons, I'm going to lose my license. It's nothing against you personally. And so they hold him at gunpoint. The police kind of get called, so they scattered. The wife ends up getting arrested. So, obviously, Michaela and Zeke are working with Drea to figure this out. And the moment, your boy Jarrett comes in, he's what the flip? What the hell is going on? And so it's a situation of for one, Mick is not telling him everything, and he's I know you're lying about something. It's he brings up the Sanvi thing. It's he's I knew about the con, but it runs a little deeper. The fact that she's got these recordings and stuff, what happened, and Michaela still won't tell him. And for him, it's you know what, I'm done. You can do whatever you want to. I don't care anymore. I'm bouncing. And obviously you have Zeke being oh, he'll come around. And for Michaela, she's no, this time I don't think he will. So that's a whole complicated thing, but obviously they're learning from, because Drea was able to speak to her. It's right, I get what you're going through. It's not what's happening to you sadly isn't new. She's I mean, can you even imagine what they did to my grandparents in World War II? So it's a thing of yeah, the world has a tendency to fear and even judge, and then there's an inquisition towards those who are different that they kind of fear. So it's Drea understands that more than so did anyone. So, the fact is that you can kind of help stop this. I started off fearing Michaela a little bit when I found out everything, but at the end of the day, she is a good person. If there's going to be anyone that can save the world, it's going to be Michaela. So, with all of that, she ended up giving them the information, but at that time, Egan had already all right, we got the weapons and stuff like that. You did good, so we got to bounce. Because at first they're so adamant about destroying Ben and stuff like that, but Adrian's the one that's now maybe we should kind of postpone the plan and everything. This is about saving all of them. And then Egan's mind, it's we need to do this now. Because at first I was are we just going to focus on killing Ben? Because it seemed once again, it's blood needs to be spilled and stuff like that. But I wasn't quite sure where they were going to go with that. Because I kept thinking oh, they want Ben dead because they blame Ben for everything. But they also kind of lumped Michaela into that. Once again, I think it's such BS considering everything that's happened. Because it's something that even Grace has said later on, where it's she was saying that when they returned, she kept wondering why this was happening to Ben, but it's the callings don't happen to you, you happen to them. With every person you help, the fact that she believes, she has faith in this, and that's the big conversation going forward, because obviously after Cal disappears, Dr. Gupta's well, we'll find a way. She believes in science. She believes there'll be a way to use the tailfin to get him back. But obviously for Grace, it's you're crazy lady. Listen to us, but she doesn't want to, because she is someone that doesn't have faith, because she believed oh, if I got a telescope, I could see my grandmother up in heaven, and I couldn't. And I think that, it started there where it's just right, you can't have faith and believe in stuff like that. Like, science is the only way forward, you know? And I think Sanvi kind of represents that too. Like, you know, that line between religion and science, that could be a, like, complicated road. Like, unless you can find the perfect balance between them. I'm sure there's probably, I mean, I was about to say, I wonder, are there scientists like that? I'm sure there's at least some scientists that, you know, are able to explore their wonders of the universe while also having their own faith. I'm sure there exists. I'm sure in the past there's been some. I'm sure to this day there's still some. And because sometimes it turns into a conversation of you kind of have to choose between religion and science. You know, it's an interesting discussion, and we see that kind of in the forefront with Dr. Gupta. But obviously, Vance can't turn her down. Like, she's got orders from on high, like Director Zimmer is like, oh yeah, like, keep going and do what you're doing. So she feels vindicated and does what, like, in her mind it's like, right, I am trying to help your son. Like, I'm just going to try and do it my way. I don't believe in all of this. So, but Vance is like surrendering, but he's like, the fact of the matter is, everything you do, like, you'll need to, like, jump into things kind of head first. Make sure you're a good father, but you need to learn a little finesse. And it's like, the fact of the matter is, he's like, there's no getting to Dr. Gupta, so we're going to have to find a way around this. It's like, you know, I even covered up a murder to protect the passengers. He's like, I'm in this. Especially, like, hell, if it was my son, I'd burn down the whole castle to get to if it was one of my children. So, I am going to help you get your boy back. Because for him, it's like, I've been there since the beginning, since you guys landed, you know, 2-ish years ago. So it's like, I'm in this. Well, I'm going to help you, you know? So, obviously, Grace had left to go to get some of Cal's drawings. And so, obviously, they're looking through them, and obviously they're trying to, you know, send the pictures over to Vance and Ben and Sanvi, and they're trying to piece it all together, trying to find out how to work it. Because obviously it's like they're trying to figure out the general location of where they're supposed to take the, they're hoping like they can take some of the seismic activity, like how Sanvi took the arc piece and threw it in the fissure. Like, they're hoping to do the same thing. They just don't know where to go. But they end up finding, like, Olive kind of notices, like, wait, you look at this, it's like, right, he ran out of paper, so he had to draw all over it. So they try to see, like, what's underneath. And so she kind of took a lot of the stuff that she's kind of been applying, like, with her time with Levi, and kind of applies it here. And you see her mom looking at her, and she's like, what? It's just like, you know, it's like, I thought her mom was going to say, like, oh, I'm impressed. Like, look at, you know, who you are and stuff like that. I think this is something she can definitely lean more towards when it comes to college and stuff like that. But, which we still don't even know where the whole her and Levi thing stand, because they were kind of away together for a while when she wasn't in the episodes. But her mom was more so talking about, we were in this situation before, like when you're being separated from your brother, and Olive's like, yeah, but, you know, I'll always be your little girl. She's like, I know. And it's like, all right, let's get to it. And so they reveal, like, a dragon and something written at the bottom. Obviously, Director Zimmer is like, okay, I'm going to give you some leeway when she shows up, because they're like, all right, we got all of this. You know, they were just asking you to act on a little faith, because Dr. Gupta's the one that's just like, yeah, they believe that this is going to be a sign. It's like, my son, it's like, yes, we know about his special abilities, but where are you supposed to take the tail fin? It's like, well, we don't know. Just give us time to figure out. And even telling Vance, if this doesn't work out, you're doomed. It's like, your career is over. And it's like, he's like, if this doesn't work out, we're all screwed, you know? And so, ultimately, what I thought was interesting and what purpose it served was to make Dr. Gupta feel like, oh my God, a moment of, like, inspiration of all, like, oh my God, there's stuff science can't explain, because it was written, the message was like, it was in a different language, but it was like grandma, and it's like the dragon is the constellation she would look up to in the scope for her grandmother. I'm like, whoa! And who knows how long ago Cal drew this too. It's like, that's crazy. So for her, it's like, right, then maybe there is a little room for faith at the table. So obviously, Director Zimmer's like, are you all crazy? I'm telling you to do all this. But Gupta's like, no, I kind of get to get leeway on what kind of is said and done here. So I don't give you the permission. So you kind of have no authority here. And she's like, well, when I get back to Washington, you're both fired. And you have Vance being like, well, until then, get the hell out, because this is my facility. So they're doing, like, obviously they're charting it and trying to find out, like, obviously it ends up charting towards, like, an electrical storm that's kind of brewing out there in the sea, so they need to take the tail fin there. And as they're, like, loading everything up, Vance is getting a boat ready for them and everything. And at that moment, it's like, obviously Ben's calling Grace to let them know what they're doing. I thought Vance was going to be calling like his wife, because it's like, he's probably going to have to talk about the conversation. I'm kind of going in dangerous territory again. You're probably not going to be too happy about it. But he was calling one of his sons. It was like, oh, you're doing your homework, right? He's like, yeah, I interrogate people for a living, and it was kind of a sweet moment. But I also love the moment between Troy and Zombie. He's like, there's people who care about you here, like a colleague. And she's like, you're such a good friend. He has that look on his face like, boom, got friend zone. It's like, oh, you kind of, I legitimately don't remember Zombie's bi or not. I mean, we know she had a girlfriend, Alex, but I don't know if like she floats that way towards dudes. So I was like, because that's why I'm like, oh, if she doesn't, like Troy sadly doesn't have a shot. But if she does, then maybe there is a potential there, because it's obvious he's super got a thing for her. He's super crushing on her. And, I mean, that was kind of obvious when he first appeared. I mean, before she actually was kind of scared and worried that he was dead. But it's like, oh, no, I'm alive. Like, I kind of came and worked for Vance and stuff like that. But, yeah, you could tell he definitely really cares about her. But as they're getting on the boat ready and stuff like that, obviously Egan's plan enacts and he goes to Vance's place. Their plan was like to break in there and get proof of what the NSA is responsible, because like, they're responsible for all of this, so we got to make them pay. And but sadly Vance's son was there, so they end up kind of holding him hostage, which even Egan's like, whoa, what are we doing? No, we're not going to kill a kid. Like, no, it's not his fault. Like, even if we got issues with his dad, like, we can't go this far. But for Randall, it's like, no, like, the kid's seen our face, we could get in trouble for this. I think the sacrifice would be necessary, because, like, well, even if we go to jail, at the very least we'll have exposed them in the long run. So they had to stay there, because, like, well, what are we going to do? The kid's seeing our face, it'll report us and everything. Especially because you broke into an NSA agent's house, so that's going to be a whole complicated thing, too, of like, oh, you won't just have the police coming after you. You'd have the NSA. You already have the issue with the NSA because of this whole, like, 828 thing, so you already think they're gunning for you right now. Like, you're probably feeling like you're trapped, because it's going to be even worse if we get put in a system, because they'll probably make us disappear into a black site type of thing like that. In his mind, that's probably like something Vance would do. So at the same time, like, Mick, Drea, and Zeke had found plans for a house, and Drea calls it in to try and figure out what the house was. And by the time they show it, like, obviously you had Jarrett like get the address, and he shows up because he's thinking like, oh, you guys staking out like Vance's place. Is like, nah, his son's held hostage. So Vance shows up, and it's like, all right, he tried to, like, before he left, he's like, all right, they are the authority here, what they say goes. So all right, everyone go along. Jarrett's helping out Vance with securing the place. Obviously I love the like whole thing of like Zeke using his powers, being like, Egan's having second thoughts. He doesn't trust Randall. And then Drea being like, of course you could do that. Like, right. Just the craziness of everything. So they start using that against him. Like I said, you can understand a little bit of what Egan... Like, once again, all the stuff you're chastising Ben for, you're kind of doing the same thing. You're just going so far above and beyond that it's like, it's crazy to me. That's why I think it's like you're kind of going extreme measure wise as well, but I think in their mind it's like, well, everything we're doing is for the passengers. Ben, it's like, shut up. You haven't been there since day one. Everything has been for the passengers. Everything has been about solving this and figuring this out. Obviously, they just figured out the lifeboat thing. They obviously don't want to like tell everyone all at once, because it's going to make you go kaput and crazy like it did, So it's just like... it's just like so frustrating, because I think Egan has some good intentions, but at the same time, you can't discount that he's not the selfish bastard that he is. I mean, Jarrett was even able to use that against him, because it was like, oh, Randall, you think he's actually looking after you? Because all he's doing is just trying to get more powerful and stuff like that. He's just trying to control you. So he was able to kind of spin everything. He took Egan down, and then you have your boy Vance coming in, bam, takes Randall down. So everything's all good and copacetic until Jarrett sees the picture of Vance and his buddy, and it's like, oh, the guy he ran into. And it's like, yeah, who's this? It's like, oh, military buddy. It's like, yeah. Oh, you're so tight, he'd do anything for you, wouldn't he? And Vince is like, I'm going to check on my son. So it's like Jarrett's piecing stuff together, and he finally ends up confronting Michaela. It's like, right, Vance and Sanvi had something to do with Sarah's mom's death, huh? And you knew about it. It's like, I didn't know the entire time, but I knew eventually. And it's like, it's like, you chose not to. No, I did. She's like, you know, right? I did make a choice, because the fact of the matter is all it takes is one particular person to sink the lifeboat. So I protected Sambi to protect the entire lifeboat. But for him, it's like, you know what? I don't care. I'm done. Like, because for him, it's like, as cops, we know what's right and what's wrong. You protecting a murderer, granted, it's also a cop. You can't, there's gray areas to this. We're talking about the woman that kidnapped people and experimented on people. She promised that she had a cure. Sanvi was desperate. Like, it's not like Sarah's mom was a good person, but the justification could be like, well, everything she did was for the sake of this country. Like, a lot of, like, as we've seen with the NSA, of like, there's a lot of people trying to justify, like, oh, we're doing this for the greater good and stuff like that. So that's, I don't know. It's just, I don't feel as bad. I just, it's like, it's sad that Sanvi was put in that position. It is sad that Sarah doesn't have her mom anymore. But let's not mince words and kind of make it seem like her mom was a saint. Her mom crossed some lines she shouldn't have crossed either. But now it's like, now he knows, like, wait, that's why you quit being a cop, because you're protecting Sanvi. Sanvi was going to turn herself in, but considering everything going on, Michaela changed her mind, because it's like, right, like the way the 828ers are being scrutinized, I'm doing my job as a good cop, and I'm being questioned about that, So I'm sure that would have leaned more into, like, Jarrett being like, I would have had your back. You wouldn't have to worry about that. But for him, it's like, now I got to break up with Sarah. And she's like, why? And it's because, what, am I supposed to start a life with her, have kids, get married? I would basically, our entire relationship would be based on a lie, because I know the truth about her mom. Like, she just got closure, and now I would have to take that away from her, and I wouldn't want to do that, because that opened up a whole big, it's more so for her sake rather than Michaela or Sanvi's. I mean, if it came true, like, it also kind of looked bad upon Michaela, like, right, you knew about this and you kept it secret. That's a whole thing. And then Jarrett's like, for him, he confesses what's already there, like how he really feels of, like, it was supposed to be us. Like, I was just kind of okay with the fact that you were marrying him, because he was going to die. Like, so I was okay with him marrying the woman that I love, and kind of walked away. He's supposed to be dead. I was like, that's super messed up. And so Michaela walks over, and Zeke's like, we need to talk. Because I think for him, he sees, like, at the end of the day, he feels it and knows it. He felt it before. He already knew it before. But I think this is him kind of accepting, like, right, you're still in love with Jarrett, that maybe we need to figure things out, It's like, I don't want to be the reason, like, because for her, like, for him, he's like, I understand how hard this is for you, that Jarrett is the one person, like, he was your partner. He was also your fiance at one point in time. Like, not being able to tell him everything is hard for you, Because now it's also like, it's like the callings aren't just affecting your life, they're affecting the people you care about as well. And that is Jarrett. You still care about him. So I'm curious, is Zeke setting up a thing of, we can't keep going like this? Like, maybe we need to take a break, which is kind of sad, Because it's like, I think she does love Zeke, but it's also like Jarrett also has a special place in her heart. And maybe with his empath abilities, maybe now for him it's like, right, maybe I need to do what's not best for me, but what's best for you, Michaela, your happiness, And it's like, maybe you being conflicted like this isn't good. I don't know. That conversation could go many different places. So it is kind of sad to know, like, you can also understand where Jarrett comes from. It's a thing of, like, you're frustrated, but at the same time, you can understand. But I kind of chalk it up to be like, as a cop, there's a lot of illegal stuff going on. It's like, yes, the callings have done some good, but it's also kind of done a lot of trash stuff towards your life, and your entire life has kind of got impeded by a lot of this stuff. But it's also like, like I said, it's a complicated thing. You can tell, like, it's been clear that it's just his personal feelings are in the way. Like, this isn't really a cop thing. It's just a Jarrett thing, just because he feels like, once again, that I'm kind of being abandoned. I'm not a part of your, like, discussions or decisions. Like, her leaving the police force is like leaving him again. It's like, at least working together, he was able to kind of keep his emotions in check, and was able to kind of work alongside of her. So at least there was some form of what they had. When her quitting was like the last ties between them. And I think Michaela was right, like, Jarrett's not going to come around. Like, it's at least before, like, he came around and was like, oh, everything was a little copacetic. To be fair, this has always been bubbling beneath the surface. It just finally exploded, So at the same time, we have the whole situation on the ship. The dude running things doesn't want to take the ship any further, because for him it's like, I got orders. Director Zimmer's like interfering again, so it's like, just, all right, we'll just cut the tail fin. It's like, nope. It's like, this will save my son's life. What the hell does this have to do with your son? But Sambi goes out there and she releases the tail fin, And in the process, she almost died because she gets trapped into Telfin. Luckily, it disappears upon returning to the water, so Ben was able to jump in and rescue her. So it's like, but sadly, returning to Telfin wasn't enough because it's like, regardless of us doing that, like, he didn't come back. Cal didn't come back. But in that moment, like, they find themselves in the calling. Her too. So it's like, whoa. She's like, I redeemed myself. It's like, right. So it's good news because now Sanvi is part of the calling. So now she can tip the scales in the trials to lead herself. I think in a way, because that's why for her, it's like, I'm the reason why this all started with the Telfin. It's up to me. So I think the scales have tipped back more in the balance of she has put herself back on a path of redemption with the, so she's in a position to help, tip the scales for her. Because if she's not in a position to tip the scales in her favor, it kind of screws over the entire lifeboat. But at the same time, like, Michaela had gotten a calling and she found Adrian. Before, it was his eyes bleeding, so the thought was like, what's going to happen? Like, is he going to be responsible for a death? And in that moment, this time, instead of his eyes bleeding, his hands are covered in blood. And I'm wondering, because, like, the blood eyes before for Sanvi meant that she was lying, so it kind of seemed like the same case with Adrian, but I think it's because he wasn't lying anymore. He's like, right, I couldn't see the, I lied and said I didn't see the callings, but I did, and he kind of ignored them, so that's what it was. So, not quite sure the whole him and Angelina situation, what that necessarily meant, but obviously for Michaela, it's like, wait, what's going on? And it's like, he's bringing up Ben. It's like, oh, Ben has to be stopped because it's like, he's going off the deep end, and you've known that for a while. But Ben is trying to, but I guess in a grand scheme of things, it's supposed to be God punishing him for tipping the scales negatively. Like, you are the one who kind of has been here, and you kind of were doing good work, but then you slipped and kind of did some bad stuff. So, like, this is supposed to be, like, his punishment, I'm thinking. And Michaela comes over and she's like, I'm so sorry, Ben. I thought I could stop the killing. But then Cal's in the seat and Ben's like, just tell me how I can fix it. So what I can do. And he's like, almost like, this is the way it's supposed to be. And you're like, what the hell is that supposed to mean? And Angelina, taking Adrian's advice, ends up going to the house. I'm like, oh boy, I was like, what's going to happen here? I was like, wait, are you going to kill the baby? Are you going to kill Eden? I was like, no, of course you would, because she's your guardian angel and everything. And then, like, Grace is there and she confronts Grace. I was like, no! Olive is locked in a room, so she can't. I was like, no. And she ends up taking Eden, and Eden's looking at her and seeing flames behind her. And it's like, right. So the sad thing is, it's unclear whether she was always a major threat. I guess, like, she's the newest threat to the lifeboat. I don't know whether she always has been. Maybe it's because of her parents' situation. Like, she's broken on the inside because of her parents. And maybe this wasn't the original path she was supposed to be on, but the path took this direction because she couldn't follow the callings, and she just kind of started, like, once again, she latched on to different things. First Pete, and lost him and kind of fell apart, and then she held on to Eden, and now that's kind of her, And obviously, Michaela's like, Michaela and Ben are like, we got to get back home. And in that moment, Cal disappears, and then we get to Grace, and then, like, we see someone reaching up, like, in the Cal's closet. I was like, Cal's back. I was like, the moment, like, he was able to touch up with the closet, I was like, he's older now. He's the age he's supposed to be, I'm sure. And then he's there with Grace, and Grace is like, my sweet, sweet boy, take care of the family. He's like, I promise, Mom. He's like, I know what is supposed to happen, what I'm supposed to do now. And he cradles his mom dead. So I was like, what? Wow, not only did you kill Grace's brother, you killed Grace as well. That's some BS. I was like, what? It didn't cross my mind to think that. And Ben's probably going to blame himself because it's like, right, he wanted her to be there with him. And it's like, she had to go home to get these. Because this blows your mind, because you're like, that means, because Cal said Angelina's supposed to be there. Maybe she diverged from her original path in the scheme of the trials and everything. Maybe she was supposed to be there to do some good, or maybe at the end of the day it was her choice, or I don't know. Because why would Cal get the callings and he's told to kind of keep her there and everything? Especially because it's like her and Adrian, they've kind of caused so much massive damage. He caused some severe damage last season. Now this season, them together, like, have they been in communication the entire time? Is like, when Adrian's kind of been out and about, like, before we, like, saw him get arrested, like, was him and And because I was wondering that at the end of episode 11, I was like, where the hell was she going when she dropped off Cal? Like, I didn't get that. So I don't. Maybe she was meeting up with Adrian or something. I don't know, but I'm curious what this means now too. Like, now that Grace died, like. I don't know, like, why would the Callings do that? Because, like, and Cal said, like, it was meant to be this way, in the sense that I guess there are just some things that are so set in stone that this is God's grand plan, and it's just, this is the way things have to. So, once again, it turns to that thing of, like, what, there does seem like there's supposed to be some element of free will, but it also seems like there is some predetermination. It's like, for him, it's like, this is the way things have to be. Like, maybe his mom dying and everything to tell Finn returning, like, everything is meant to lead him, like, her death is able to bring him back to be the age he's supposed to be, which is actually kind of sad, because it means, like, the kid who plays Cal probably won't be seeing him playing Cal. Like, they're just getting this older actor to kind of portray him from now on. You got certain aspects of, like, it's kind of like Once Upon a Time, like Henry going from season 6 to 7. They kind of play around with that in the 7th and final season a little bit. I'm just trying to understand why the Callings led to Angelina being a part of that house. And for Olive kept being like, we can't trust her and everything. Maybe the argument is if they had, like, let her stay there like Cal wanted to, if they hadn't kind of, but then it's like, I don't know. Yeah, they just kind of I guess if they let her still just kind of be a little holdy and crazy, that maybe things wouldn't have turned out this way. I don't know. The way Cal was saying, like, this is the way it was supposed to play out. Because I was like, why is he, like, I didn't know if he meant, like, oh, like, I'm supposed to die or something, like he was going to sacrifice himself. I guess the moment he touched the tail fin is when he learned the truth. Like, he connected with the Callings, and he was always super sensitive to him, so he found out what was supposed to happen. And I think this was a necessary step for him to come back. Now it's like he's seen everything. He knows how things are supposed to play out. So he's probably going to keep a lot of that to himself. It's probably the thing of, right, I know the roadmap to where we need to get to. I understand how this is all supposed to be, but I can't tell anyone. All I can do is do what the Callings have done up until now. I can guide people in certain directions, but I can't fully tell them. At the end of the day, they still have to make their choice, because there is some form of free will and everything. So it's just a heartbreaking situation that it led to that. It's like, man, like I said, on some solace I guess you can get, it's like maybe she's reunited with her brother, but still, it's like, no, like, she should be there with her family. That's not fair. Like, after everything that they've done for things to kind of lead for the Callings to kind of lead to this. So, and then we have the ending where Dr. Gupta is walking by the plane, and it's like, okay, and then in that moment, what was it, Dale, the pilot, pops back in. I was like, oh. But it was like, we noticed that the lady that was in the storm with him. So that's been a big point since, wasn't that back in season 1 of, like, okay, so that was kind of a theory of, like, maybe he did go back in time or something. I don't know. Because we know, like, Alzura and everything, like, we learned last season that there is some form of time travel where, like, 828 and Alzura, like, the dragon he saw in the sky was, like, 828 because that timeline overlapped. Once again, like, it seems like kind of everything happened in one particular pocket dimension of time, like, where, like, whatever this is, gathered everyone together that's kind of involved in it. I don't know. Like I said, I think on some level Zeke was there, like, when what happened to him happened. It just, maybe he was out there at sea and he just doesn't remember, So there's got to be something to that we still haven't really circled back to. I guess maybe that's as far as we're going with that aspect of things. So that's kind of resolved in its own right, and we're just continuing forward with this. But, like, the doctor, like, he had kidnapped. I was also wondering, like, isn't that the actress who plays Chemist Mary, Chemical Mary, from On the Blacklist? I believe that is the same actress. I didn't even think about that till just now. Once again, we haven't seen her since season 1. Freaking spoilers. Townsend's sister on the Blacklist. I think that's the same actress, if I'm not mistaken. But it was like, yeah, she didn't pop back, only he did. Maybe that's significant that only he popped back in. But the moment he pops in, he's like, help, and then him and the entire plane disappear. You're like, wait, what? Huh? What? So, okay. So was that the real? So he came back, but then the plane disappearing. Like, is that why did that disappear? We know why the tail fin disappeared. Is like, did something else go wrong? Maybe Angelina going off like book, going crazy like that. Maybe that's what flipped the script. Like, maybe that's why the plane disappeared. But why Dale come back? Like, well, to be fair, wasn't her name Ellen, the woman who had died, who had gotten shot, like her body returned, but it was like she had been in water for the past like 7 years or whatever. So maybe it's kind of a similar thing, but I mean, it's not like he died. He was alive, so maybe it has something to do with the storm. Maybe the tailfin being returned in the storm and everything led to that. So maybe it's like all of it's kind of like returning. Like, is he at the bottom of the ocean or whatever? Or did that teleport him somewhere else? It also opened up Dr. Gupta's eyes of like, what the hell did I just see? That's quite the damn stinger of like to end this season off and just have no idea what that means. I can't even begin to fathom. So, a lot of crazy stuff. At the time of me recording this, it hasn't been confirmed. NBC hasn't confirmed whether or not they're bringing Manifest back for a 4th season. I hope we get a 4th season. I always feel like it's such a bummer that, like, it's always, like, well after the fact. I don't know whether they have to do some calculations about whether something is profitable enough and gets enough of a viewership for them to renew it or not. But, like, because Manifest, the news always comes out, like, well after the fact. Some shows get, like, their decisions kind of made halfway through the season, or at the very least near the end of the season. Like, they might come to decision. Like, Manifest has always been like a little after the fact, like maybe a couple months after the fact. So I hope we get news soon that there is a 4th season. I hope it isn't just like a 4th and final season. I don't see that being the case. I definitely see this being like at the very least maybe 5 seasons. I mean, it also depends on like how long they want to take to tell the story they want to tell, but you know, it could be like 6 seasons like Lost. But at the bare minimum, I want a 4th season. I want there to be more, but at the bare minimum, we need to at least confirm that we need another season. I need to know where we're going. You can't have a cliffhanger like this and just leave it at. It's like, no, we need answers. You already took one show away from me, NBC, that left me with huge questions and unresolved stuff. It's like, you're not about to do it to me again. I need Manifest to come back because I need to know where the hell this show is going from here, where everyone's story is going to take them going forward from here. I'd assume, considering everything, they pick up immediately after. I don't think there'll be like a time skip like there was between 2 and 3. So, well, like I said, ultimately have to wait and see how it all ends up playing out. But I'm also curious, like, where the NSA situation is going to stand, where, like, Vance is going to stand after this, after the tailfin thing. Like, maybe he's out of the job, so it's out to Gupta. I mean, the whole place was empty probably because that was all shut down. So, are they just going to be working on this on their own, figuring out this 828 mystery? Obviously, the status of, like, you know, the other 828ers feeling like the negative connotations they have towards Ben and Michaela or the Stone family in general. It's like, could that be continued going forward, or will they feel a little sympathy because, like, oh, his wife is dead? Yeah, it didn't mean for things to go that way, and they all kind of played their own role in things kind of snowballing like this. But like, that's why I brought up earlier, like, maybe this is supposed to be Ben's punishment for going off, you know. I mean, there's been punishments for not following the callings, but maybe him going to such extreme lengths, like the tips, the scales, you know, it's just like, which makes it so arbitrary and like so unfair because you don't know where your standings are. I mean, because I was wondering if Sambi was going to be like healed, but to be fair, she's not going to be healed until the death date, like Zeke. It's like, so you're still not going to be sure until the very end, very much like Jace, Corey, and Pete. That was like literally down to the wire, and it's like, oh, well, we're fine, and he's not. Oh, because he's not fine, we're screwed too. We're all dead, you know? So, like I said, we'll ultimately have to wait and see. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, low light to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.